You do so much research every time. I must have been in companies with you, I don't know, a gazillion times now, and every time I'm like, what, really? You have something new, and it's like, well, you never said that the last time, and a different take on it. Given the research that you do, given the, one of your three things being that of a professor, what research have you read, been part of, heard about that has really gone wow, or has really shot the pants off you, or just something that's really got you to go, oh, now that's cool?
Brilliant question. Well, I often one of the advices I got a long time ago when I first started going into night school and pursuing this, because my wife says that I'm a secret geek, that she thinks that, like, if people met me, they wouldn't necessarily know that I just love being bookish and nerdy and sort of delving into this. And she thinks I disguise it relatively well. I'm not sure I do. But I remember getting some of that I got advice that said, just read anything, just be open to anything, because there is always something, whatever you read, that you can learn from. And the example is, I remember that piece of advice came whizzing back to me when I read a book years ago by a guy called Andrew Lou Goldham. Now, some people might know who he is, but he was the manager of the Rolling Stones when they first formed in the 60s. And it's a tale of sort of drug taking and debauchery on an industrial scale, and it's a brilliant book in that regard. But when I remember reading it, there's a brilliant story he tells about when. So he fell out with the Stones in the late 60s, and he fled to New York. And while he was there, he ended up befriending Jimi Hendrix. And he tells a great story that one night he went into a club where there was a guitarist playing. And he said, and it was very obvious in the first couple of minutes that this guitarist was hopeless. And he said, he turned to Jimi Hendrix and said, "Should we leave and we can still make something of the night?" And Jimi Hendrix was sat watching this guy in sort of rapt attention. And he said, no. He said, "You go if you want." He said, "But I'm staying." And Andrew Oldham said to him, "Why on earth would you stay to watch this guy? He's rubbish. He doesn't deserve to be able to string your guitar." And Jimi Hendrix said, "No, true." He said, "But he's that bad. He might do something by accident that I could learn from, that I can incorporate into my act on purpose." And it was such a brilliant way of explaining that you can learn from everything.
Yeah.
There's nothing that you can't learn from. So there's always something that you can pick up or read or just listen to, or when you, like in the research I'm lucky enough to do, where you just ask questions. And people are very generous often in sharing some of those insights. So I'd say I'd go back to answer your original question about the research. The stuff around culture, the research for that just really sort of lit me up was by a couple of guys called Barron and Hammond, that are Stanford professors. And they were the ones that argued back in the early 90s that they used to teach classes that said culture matters. And people go, yeah, I agree with that. Where's the evidence? And the reality was there was no real evidence that supported it. So these were the two guys that went into Silicon Valley and looked at startup businesses. And it was by doing the research with these startup businesses that they identified the 5 different cultures. And what they then did was track these cultures, these businesses, for the next 25 years to look at how sustainable the success was. So the stuff we spoke about earlier about the star, the autocratic model, that's the most recent research that I've read that I just found really, really rich, really sort of rewarding to go and pursue that a little bit more detail. There's some other work from a lady called Amy Edmondson that's done something similar, looking at hospitals in America, looking at cultures there. And she's the one that came out with so she talks about 2 things of high-performing cultures. So again, I've tried to incorporate them in the Barcelona book. She talks about psychological safety and trust. So the idea that the best hospitals in America are the ones with the highest recorded incident rates, which might sound a little bit counterintuitive, but what she said is, it's not. They're the best hospitals because they've got the highest reported incident rates because people feel psychologically safe and trust the management enough that they can admit they nearly made a mistake and it gets handled in the right way, where they learn faster and better. The worst hospitals have the lowest recorded rates because people are hiding mistakes. They're not being prepared to own cock-ups. So again, they're just two examples of academic research that is really rich. But equally, like I remember a few years ago reading, I was stuck in a travel lodge somewhere in some
the joy.
On some industrial estate, and when I got to my room, I realised that I didn't have anything to read. I'd sort of left my books behind, so there was like an Asda on the industrial estate, so I ended up wandering over. And the only book I could find that would get me through the evening was Gary Barlow's autobiography that was out at the time.
Strong.
But I remember reading it. But again, I tell you what, I took two notes from that I found really, really illuminating. That again, so I'm trying to offer a contrast. So one of the things he spoke about was that he'd spoken about how he'd been incredibly egocentric when he was in Take That first time round, and how that had actually led to the seeds of their destruction, and how he'd had the humility to go and seek feedback from his band members once the acrimony was all over, and get some real feedback about the mistakes he made and what he could have done better. And he tells some quite interesting stories about getting that feedback and what he learned from it. That I remember thinking, that's just a really interesting point that some people that could maybe incorporate one day into trying to explain it. Now, I never have done until I've just shared it with you.
Until now.
But I might try and find a way of weaving it in. But again, we can learn. It's Andrew Lou Goldham's lesson or Jimi Hendrix's lesson. You can learn from everything as long as you're open-minded enough to actually give it a go.